Hello guys, it's Stephen here. Welcome back to another episode of 5 Things That We Learned After City's wonderful, delightful, magical and mesmeric 2-0 victory over Monchengladbach in the Champions League last 16. It was absolutely delightful, a wonderful performance. I'm going to pull 5 things out today from that performance and get chatting about them, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I do that though, I want to go and talk about the latest episode of Hold the L over on Super 6, where they're debating who are the big 4 Premier League clubs. I wasn't involved because City didn't really need to argue about that. But anyway, watch this clip from Paul Machin over at Red Men TV, and there's loads of clips as well from Nini at Blue Lions and his DT as well and his Flav. But anyway, watch this clip from Machin.
And look, ultimately, how many times, if you want to boil it down to this, is how many times they've literally finished in the top 4. Let's just go off that, and Liverpool have finished in the top 4. They are in that clutch of clubs. I think they're the third most top 4 finishes of any team in the Premier League era. Now, that doesn't equate to success. I'm not going to sit here and go, let's have an open top bus like Flavin has £51 million in the bank nonsense. But, you know, the point is Liverpool have been there or thereabouts, not successful by our own high standards, but also picking up trophies along the way as well. Not just going, oh, well, never mind, you know, nearly but not quite. You know, they've won FA Cups, they've won League Cups, they've won European Cups in that time, they've won the UEFA Cup in that time. They've managed to maintain a business of winning silverware in an era that was dominated by Man United and for a spell, obviously Arsenal, and for a spell Chelsea as well. This is the thing for me, is that, you know, the big 4 came from the big 3, and the big 3 was Liverpool, Manchester United and Arsenal. And then we expanded out because Chelsea came along, and they had to. Undoubtedly, you had to make it a big 4, because you can't ignore Chelsea, because they're not a flash in the pan. You know, there was a little thought, well, how long is Abramovich going to stick around? And let's be honest, we were all hoping it wasn't going to be very long. But he's stuck it out, and he's delivered consistent success. And there's going to be a point now where, again, in 10 years' time, if Man City is still up there, it'll just be a big 5. There won't be like, oh, one team's going to get kicked out of it, because Arsenal are always going to be a massive football club. And, you know, regardless of what happens, Liverpool and Chelsea and Man United will always be massive football clubs. So I'm sorry, Flav, I like you. You're a really nice guy. But your football team does not deserve to be in this conversation in the slightest.
Some interesting arguments there, but I don't really agree anymore that the idea that Arsenal are part of the top 4, Manchester City aren't, in terms of the big 4. I'm sorry, Paul, you're a top bloke once again. But I think we're forgetting that City have now accomplished more in the Premier League than Arsenal actually have. We're about to win our 5th. Arsenal won 3, and they did that over a period of 7 years. So what I'm going to say, even though Arsenal are a huge club and they have achieved an awful lot, City now have achieved more in the Premier League era. And if we're being totally honest, and this is a hornet's nest I'm not willing to poke too much, Liverpool in the Premier League era, they're probably not as successful simply as that as United, Chelsea, Arsenal and Man City. I know they've been around the top 4 an awful lot and won trophies, and it's a very good point. But if we're talking sheer Premier League success, well, City are there, unfortunately. But either way, there's definitely a big debate. And if we go further out than the Premier League, of course, Liverpool are probably in that conversation. They definitely are. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world for a reason. But I think personally, I mean, if you're looking at pure stats, it's United, it's Chelsea, it's City, it's Arsenal. I mean, that's it in terms of Premier League trophies. But maybe Liverpool, but maybe not Arsenal anymore, if you know what I mean, because maybe they're just not part of the conversation anymore. It's hard to say. Either way, go and check out the full video down in the link in the description. Go over there, get your comments in, give the video a like, and vote for who deserves to hold the L this week. It's probably going to be Flav and Spurs. Sorry, Flav, mate. Anyway, let's get into the 5 things that we learned video. I'm going to start initially with strongest 11. Did we see last night Manchester City's strongest 11? Have we learned what our strongest 11 is? Now, obviously, there's loads of controversial takes here, but last night we saw 10 of the most selected players this season play in terms of minutes. And it's definitely a very strong argument to suggest that Guardiola favours this team at the moment in a big game. There are potentially some variations that I would like to see every now and then, but overall, it's hard to argue with most of this. I would say most of us would agree with 90% of this team being the strongest 11, or at least 9 out of 11 or 10 out of 11 players anyway. And in goal, Ederson is definitely our best keeper. I mean, we all want Cancelo in there. Could he be Zinchenko instead of Kyle Walker? I understand the Kyle Walker shout, so because he's a natural kind of, with his pace, helps us so much defensively in the transition as he plays more in the deeper roles, the kind of like a third centre-back when Cancelo gets forward. But Zinchenko's been excellent there this season, and there's an argument to suggest that Cancelo is more effective over on the right. So they're the only two, that's the only debate there, I would say, defensively. Cancelo is definitely in it. Is it Walker or is it Zinchenko? Diaz and Stones at the moment, I think that's more or less a no-brainer. I'm sorry, Laporte, but Diaz and Stones is currently our best centre-back pairing, in my personal opinion. Rodri is definitely in there. And then going forward, no one could argue with De Bruyne, Bernardo, Gundogan, all excellent. You probably couldn't really argue with Foden at the moment. His form is fantastic, which does leave Mahrez, who's been brilliant as well. I would personally love to see... and this is just because I love the false nine. I would love to see Gabriel Jesus get a go over on the left with Gundogan kind of through the middle and Foden over on the right. Because I thought Foden against Liverpool was absolutely brilliant over on the right. And I think he's a more natural false nine than Mahrez. That's not to call Mahrez, but if we're playing a false nine, I think in terms of rotating around, I feel like Foden's probably better and Jesus will probably be better at that because they're more dynamic players. Not saying better players, but more dynamic than Mahrez. But either way, Mahrez has a very strong, very credible, and very brilliant case to be in this team either way. Either way, if this was our team for the rest of the season, I would not be complaining because it's absolutely brilliant at the moment. The football was wonderful. Has Guardiola learned something about this team that could maybe see this be our strongest 11? It's a very strong team. And if we're putting teams out of that every week, I won't be complaining because it was brilliant. And that goes for every single player on the pitch. Next point is about that false nine. I mean, was that false nine perfection last night? At times in the first half in particular, Manchester City's movement was so fluid that you couldn't help but be reminded of Pep Guardiola's size, the likes of obviously Barcelona when they had that fluidity, that ability just to glide around the pitch. And there's nothing quite like watching a bunch of highly intelligent, highly trained and highly technically gifted footballers just move around the pitch with so much fluidity. At times, the interchange, we've seen Bernardo Silva go and cover Mahrez as he went through the middle, Foden drifting through the middle with Gundogan drifting over to the left, and De Bruyne being here, there and everywhere. It was just a sight to behold. It was genuinely beautiful football. And I know people don't like Manchester City, but if you can watch that movement and not appreciate a masterclass, if you can't appreciate that's a masterclass, then you're overthinking football. Hate Man City by all means, but don't hate the football. The football is absolutely brilliant, and if you're denying that, you're just being a little loser, if we're being honest, because that is genuinely incredible football last night. And I feel like at the moment, this false nine thing, I don't see any reason why Guardiola would want to deviate that, and that includes Gabriel Jesus. He can definitely play in this role, and there's an argument, as I was saying a minute ago, to suggest that he'd be great in this formation on the right or the left, kind of rotating around. And unfortunately, it may be difficult for Sterling, because I feel like if you're going to have a false nine system, you want players who keep the ball better. And Sterling's brilliant. I wouldn't say he keeps the ball as well as Mahrez does, or as well as Foden or Bernardo or Gundogan or De Bruyne. He's not the most silkiest of players in terms of his ball retention. That's not to say he isn't fantastic, because he is, but he's a very different kind of player and not necessarily the most perfect for this false nine. But last night, we did see signs of false nine perfection, and it was wonderful. The third thing I'd like to talk about is Kun's worries. Now, you've all seen it if you've been on social media. Aguero, a clip of him walking off, having a right old moan about not getting the ball. And people have lost their minds over this on social media, as they always do. What I will say is, dearie me, get a grip. And by that, what I mean is, come on, man. If you played football at any level, and you all definitely have, be it five-a-side, be it at school, be it on the park, when you just played 3-on-3 with your mates, be it professionally, semi-pro, Sunday league or whatever, you have definitely moaned to your mate about not passing the ball. Now imagine you're an elite level athlete and you're full of testosterone and adrenaline and you've got a winner's mentality. Of course they do it all the time. The point I'm making is it's the most normal thing in the world. And guess who moans about not getting the ball more than any other position? A striker, because strikers rely on being fed. So the point I'm making here is that the idea that there's anything deeper in this is just nonsense. I'm sorry. How many times have you seen Phil Foden do this where he doesn't get a pass? He goes like this. He goes, and he points to where the ball should have gone. And he's like that. And he looks really frustrated when he doesn't get the pass. We see this all the time. We've seen it from De Bruyne where he's like, what are you doing? And he's moaning about not getting the pass. And they always point where it should be. We've seen it from Bernardo. I've seen it from Mahrez. I've seen it from Aguero. I've seen it from, who else? Sterling. I've seen it from all the time from players. They do it all the time. Kevin De Bruyne is, let me talk, moan. And I guarantee you, players constantly moan about these kind of things. Now, for me, all this came down to was, unfortunately, I don't think anyone was trying to avoid Aguero. To me, Aguero's frustrations were just built around he wants a new contract and he wants to be here, and I feel a bit sorry for him, and I do feel like he probably worries about he's going to be left behind or something like that, or he's got a chance to stay and that's going to rely on him scoring goals. So I do worry for him on that front, and I think it's purely just emotion, but I don't think it's deep. I don't think there's any problems there whatsoever, and it's so easy to look at these things and go, oh my god, they're disrespecting Aguero. They're not. They're just playing football, and yes, maybe there should have been some passes to him, but when he came over, the game was dead, and I think players were just trying to score goals, unfortunately. unfortunately. Mara's a little bit guilty of that, if we're being honest. But it ain't deeper than that. It ain't deeper than that. And Sterling tried a bit hard when he came on as well and probably missed a pass or two. But once again, Sterling probably trying to impress Guardiola. Made the wrong calls. But we overanalyze these things. It's the most normal thing in the world for a bunch of testosterone-fueled athletes to moan at their colleagues when they don't get a pass. Every player does it. It ain't deep. Agueros frustrated because he didn't get the ball much. But doesn't mean he's going to leave Man City. Doesn't mean he's going to moan or hate anyone. Don't overthink it. Fourth thing I want to talk about is that wall. Unbelievable. The transformation from Manchester City side in previous seasons that was a little bit kind of like gung-ho and conceded silly goals in the Champions League to the one this season. We conceded 1 goal so far in the Champions League this season in 8 games, and that was the 40th minute of a group stage opener against Porto. Since then, it's been 706 Champions League minutes without conceding, which is the second highest record in the Champions League. 7 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses, 17 goals scored, and 1 against in the 40th minute of the Champions League this season. It's genuinely astonishing, and this is, I guess, one of the plus points of Manchester City this season. We are obviously mesmeric. We've seen that false nine football. We've seen that intricacy and that movement and that beautiful, sumptuous, lovely football, the kind of thing that you pay to watch and love. We've seen all that. But what we're seeing now is a Manchester City side with that awareness defensively, with that capability to keep teams at bay and frustrate them and hold them at arm's length. And that hopefully should be different. Which leads me on to the final point. Does it feel different this season? Do Manchester City feel ready to make that step? Have we found a bunch of players that are confident and are now playing with this defensive wall that I just discussed, with that behind him? Does it feel like as well the whole like no fans things will be a neutralizer in terms of like it's a clinical environment? You know, this could be City's chance to really play teams without any of the hostility from away fans. It's level. Football is leveled, and now it comes down potentially to the most organised and most focused team with no other variables in factor. Could this be Manchester City's year? It certainly feels different. City were clinical, composed and professional last night and put in one of their best Champions League performances in a game when it mattered, which you can't really say of Manchester City in the Champions League knockout stages. I'm not saying we're going to go far, but what I'm saying is last night definitely felt a little bit different. It was almost refreshing how easy it felt. Like, I know Monchengladbach are struggling. I know they are. But City have their own yips in these games. They do get nervous in these kind of games. Yet yesterday, City showed absolutely no respect to Monchengladbach in the best possible way. City turned up. They were alive. They were alert. They were brilliant. And they utterly destroyed Gladbach at times with their movement and their intelligence. This does feel different. I'm not saying I'm going to go far, but I would not be surprised if for once Man City do find a way to go further than they ever have in the Champions League, because at the moment, it feels like as well, especially with the typical City stuff, would anyone be surprised if the year we won it is when there's no fans there? But either way, it feels very, very interesting. Guys, thank you for watching this 5 Things Learned video. Go and check out the Super 6 video in the link in the description below. Get your thoughts in over there and go and give it a little bit of love as well. It's a very funny, very interesting, and very good football debate as well. They're doing good stuff over on the whole DL show. It's good fun. I enjoy being involved, and maybe I'll be involved next week. I'm not sure yet. For now, though, thank you so much to my Patreon producer, Ahmed Al-Ali, patreon.com/Esteemed Kompany if you want to get involved and help support the channel a little bit. If you can't, don't worry about it. Make sure just to give this video a like. Go watch the video from last night, the match reaction and the fan view video as well, when I chatted to some of you guys, my patrons and YouTube members. It was all good fun. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in a bit.